can make sure that we have it available for other people. Submit your questions in the chat feature. And then what we'll try to do is answer a few of those questions as we go along. But at the end, what we'll do is capture all that information, put together an FAQ, and then we'll post that FAQ up on the OASSA webpage on the COSA website. So at least those of you who didn't get a chance to participate or wanted to share the content with your colleagues will have that available to you. At the end, we'll have a couple of real quick questions. Craig has asked me to collect some information from you on a topic unrelated to dual credit. And then we're going to ask you to submit your ideas for what would be next week's topic of conversation. And there's lots of ideas out there that people are interested in hearing about, but we'll collect that from you at the end. So to get started, I'll bring up the chat box here. So we've got it. Tony, why don't you, by way of introduction, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what's going on right now in the dual credit world at the high school level.
Well, thanks for that introduction, Chris. My name is Tony McNair. I'm former high school principal for McMinnville High School, and I've been working with dual credit for almost 20 years, since South Salem in 2001. So I feel like I feel like we built a wonderful program at McMinnville, and I've also tried to help as many people as I can navigate through the hoops that sometimes it takes. But I want to preface this by saying we actually have a wonderful opportunity here. And that opportunity is the partnerships that we can create with our dual credit partners. At times, those of you that have been navigating this know that sometimes it's a little rocky. And never have we been forced to collaborate as much as we will be forced to collaborate in these next 11 weeks. What I've noticed is that so number one thing that we're going to have to do is make sure we're communicating with our partners. And so we have done a lot of work to figure out who those partners are. Before doing this Zoom thing, I was able to contact 7 of the largest community colleges in the state: Mountain Head Community College, Lane, Central Oregon, Chemeketa, Lynn Bend, Clackamas, and PCC, and talk to each one of their dual credit coordinators. And I asked them to give me insight on what they believe that these 3 critical groups should be thinking about right now. What should administrators be doing to help us navigate through this time regarding dual credit? What should our teachers be doing? And then what should our students be doing? And I got some really great feedback from a lot of our folks. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that came up and with that. And then there's a lot of specifics inside dual credit. I know that most of us worry about the specifics, and I get that. But again, this opportunity for us to build these partnerships in a way we never have, I think what's going to end up happening in the long run is our college credit partners are going to realize what wonderful assets they have at the K-12 level that they may never have noticed before, especially given that many of the in-classroom teachers at the community college are also turning to distance learning for the first time. And so they're going to be navigating some things that we are also navigating together. And together, I think we're going to be able to show the strength that the group has at the K-12 level. So number one thing administrators should be doing is please encourage your teachers, and not your counselors, but specifically your teachers, to work with their partners. Every school has a liaison for their content area. That is the most important person in this process. And they're required, because for standards that the community college has, to have that partnership at least once a year. This is a great opportunity for them to team up with that person, and they will give them some feedback, and many times will help them with this process of navigating from not being distance learning to distance learning. And because many of them, in most of the classes they have, a lot of them have an online course that they have available to them. I've been surprised in some of the people I've talked to how willing and able the community college is now in this amount to support our teachers. So sometimes we have a tendency to let counselors and our counseling staff do some of that coordination. I think the really important part is that I encourage our teachers to work with our partners and our liaisons. I would, the tough part's going to be, the balance is going to be not forcing them to go to the next step, which is there'll be times where there will be some courses that we won't be able to do for a variety of reasons. And I think that partnership that we have with our community colleges is so, sometimes can be very fragile, but it's so important that we need to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the community college and what they expect from us. But by doing it in a partnership, we're probably going to be able to navigate some of those loopholes and those problems that usually occur around seat time and amount of assignments and grading scales and whatnot, and turned in syllabi that have been approved and now need to be adjusted. So we're going to be able to do that. But there'll be times where a community college partner is going to say, that's just, we just can't offer that class in that manner. Not very, very often, I would guess, especially in this time with so many people are going to be doing it through distance learning as well. So as an administrator, I want to make sure that we don't push them too far and too fast to make them have to deviate from breaking that trust that we're building with our community college partners. So teachers are going to, when I talked to them about teachers, I said they wanted to make sure, number one, that almost every partner said if they can't meet the critical attributes of this course, then they probably shouldn't be offering it. But let's talk with our liaisons to make sure that we can navigate through this. What I find is most teachers don't realize the scope of the different syllabi that are available for different courses at the community college. We had a meeting with some McMinnville High School teachers, and they didn't really realize how different, they were using different textbooks, they're using different novels, they're using different grading scales, they're using all sorts of things. And I think our teachers, because they turn in a syllabus that has to get approved by the dean of that area or that liaison, that is in stone. And I think right now we have a great opportunity to, with these communication, with two-way communication, we can talk about what type of proficiency and sufficiency is required in order to meet the standards of the course, and maybe have to look at what my syllabus I turned in might have to turn into. Most of us are familiar that our teachers, our students get more seat time for these classes than the college does. So in many cases, they're still going to be having about the same amount of seat time as a college student would have, the 11 weeks, whereas many of them have already done some of this at McMinnville High School. There have been several of our people who have already done some work in second semester before we left that could help with this. So I think the teachers are really, really, I know a bunch of questions are going to come about this, are going to be struggling with pass, no pass that many districts will probably be going to versus a letter grade that's required for community college. I have not seen in any of the people who I've talked to any budging on letter grades. So it seems like everyone's pushing for a letter grade. And so I think, but how you get from a pass, no pass and a proficiency level to a letter grade may not be as big of a jump as we think. And so, when I see some syllabi turned in from other teachers that currently work at the community college, it seems very close that you can navigate a proficiency-based model, pass, no pass, and with the letter grade system without too much more work. Don't kid me. I don't kid you. There's going to be some more work, no question. But we're hoping that we can not make it too daunting. And then I think what I've seen for some concerns that they have is that if writing 121, writing 122, math 111, the courses that were prerequisite courses that may be that a kid really needs to be top notch on are the ones that I think that are the ones that I think are the teachers are going to be struggling with, because I think they're going to, if with their 18 weeks, they may have had enough time to get those kids at a much higher level than maybe an 11-week college student might be. Now with an 11-week and this distance or anything, they may be worried more about that ability to do that. And I think, again, going back to our partners and talking about what kind of things they might suggest. And I think you'll see that it may not be about contact hours. It may not be about it just may be about how can we meet the standards that are necessary in order for that prerequisite class to be proficient enough to move the student forward. I think a lot of this is going to be about how do we support teachers, and I get that. But I think one thing that is really exciting is that our community colleges have really done a lot of work to try to make sure our students' experience in this tough time is going to be rewarding. And if it isn't, they're going to get an opportunity to get out. And I've seen up to 1 month of changes on their drop deadlines with no penalty, with no problem for getting refunds. And so the messaging I'm hearing from the dual credit coordinators is be sure to get your kids registered, get them going on this, work with your teachers to get them moving forward. And then if it doesn't work, they can drop the class without any penalty. And that's a tricky boundary, because you're trying to encourage students to do this, and I think the teachers are going to have to really work on communicating with their students regarding where the kids are, where the student is proficiency wise, and then if it's not going well, then they're going to have that heart to heart with the student about where they.
Let's tackle a couple of the questions related to those topics. So the first one that came up was around this notion of penalty. So is what you're hearing is that for given this recent change, a senior who's all done, I've got all my graduation requirements, I'm on track, I've met the 24, I don't really have to do anything anymore. They could drop dual credit writing 121, a college writing class, with no penalty, you think, and could get a refund for that they've done. Is that what you're hearing?
In all 7 of these, the drop deadline for without penalty is at least a month away from now.
Okay.
So we have some wiggle room on this. Right. And I think the other thing is, in many cases, they haven't even registered yet. So some of the schools' registration timeline is different than for Chemeketa. We had already registered, but for we're at McMinnville, we're partnered with 4 other schools, and so our registration timelines are all different. So I think I think what the community colleges are now worried about, they don't even know what's out there for some of their schools because they haven't even begun registering. So getting that information from the students around who is still interested in doing this and tackling this from the teacher, and then getting those kids registered, knowing that they're going to have about a month at the worst case scenario. I've got a date. I've got one of our partners, and I'll put all this later on in the FAQ that Chris talked about. But one of our partners has a June drop date with no penalty and full refund. So I think we're going to have some opportunities and we also have a lot of these partners. They don't. It's a no cost anyway. Some of our schools do charge by credit or.
Maybe we exceeded our limit.
On the right, little blue arrow.
This one?
No, in the middle. Up.
Of them are leaning towards letter grade still, but they're still in some conversations about that. I see a message from Katie that says something about a pass on high school and the college letter GPA. There should be a differentiation between the grade that a kid gets in high school and a kid gets in college for the college credit class. It doesn't always work out that way, we've seen, but in many cases there's the teachers is doing something special for the college credit now kids, and so I don't think that at our school, our teachers at Bigville High School, they're going to give a pass, no pass for the high school grade, and they're going to give a letter grade for the college grade. That's what will happen at Bigville High School. I would imagine that would be the case at many other places, but I'm not sure that's the case. That's the case for everybody. So
in that case, the high school transcript will show a pass for college writing, and then their Chemeketa transcript or whoever the institution, that will show a B+.
And many of our cases, our high school transcript doesn't even have the college class listed on there.
Right.
It's a whole totally different class, and so I can't imagine that anybody in this time is going to be looking at a college transcript, a high school transcript, and saying, why did they, they got a pass, but because I don't think there's going to be any correlation between those two at all. I can't imagine that. I see some also, I know there's some OIT and some of the Willamette Promise stuff, and that I don't know a lot about that right now. We stopped doing the Willamette Promise a couple years back. So, but I know that's going to be, that's also going to come up. But the beauty on that one is it's so high school teacher directed, and a lot of teacher collaboration. I think that's going to help out a lot for that. So, other questions?
So I'll add on just a little bit here about flexibility. So you're thinking that your most important thing right now is to have your teachers communicate with their liaison for the college and the course that they're working on. And if they want to make significant changes or any changes to the syllabus that they initially submitted, they can do that, but just get the approval by that liaison.
Yes,
and
so often our syllabi go to our community college and through our for MWEC for Chemeketa, and then it transfers over to the other person in order to the academic dean, and they look it over. But in this time, there's going to be so many other syllabi that are getting adjusted, and teachers at the community college that are actually being trained themselves to do distance learning, that I think there's going to be a lot of suggestions, a lot of think tank stuff going on that are going to help our own teachers in the high schools navigate this time. And so I think I know more often than not, our high school teachers are more concerned about the rigor and the pacing of keeping up with the college level stuff than they really really is probably necessary. And I'm careful on that one because they want to do it really right. And this will still be right, but it'll also be an opportunity for us to partner with some people about some flexibility that we might have, and I believe a lot of chance to get some advice from some people at the college level that have been doing distance learning for a long time. One thing I didn't mention, another positive, is that our students, when they're a freshman and a sophomore, or they're going to be taking online classes. And very few of our kids take online classes right now, especially our dual credit kids. This is going to be a chance for them to navigate a system that they're going to be navigating in their future. And so for me, and I know my own child, his first online class was a disaster because he hadn't done anything like that before. So here's another, and I try to find a lot of silver lining in these things. Here's another opportunity that we have to challenge our students who are juniors and seniors who are just going through this stuff, and give them this challenge. And you know what? If it doesn't stick, there's no penalty. And it would just, as long as we're communicating well. So, but I think the big one would be that managing and I'll get that FAQ up, managing our timelines for drops with penalty and all that, knowing that stuff, so we don't actually put someone in dire straits, a student, to do that. So,
hey Eric, we froze up a little bit, and I know you had a comment regarding stuff from the Oregon or the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. If you want to either resubmit the question for us, or you want to just open your mic and ask the question, of Tony, that may help us answer that one for you, because I wasn't able to capture it when we froze up.
Hi, everyone. This is Eric from the Heck. I just was actually, I had not so much a question, but just hopefully a helpful update that the Heck has been partnering with ODE, and we're close to issuing some additional guidance around dual credit, some Q&As that we've been gathering, and included in there is going to be some language that we have in draft form about course grading for the college course being decided on a case-by-case basis by the college or university, which I think supports exactly what I was hearing from Tony.
Great, thank you.
And I think that if we do get some flexibility with that, I think it's going to ease so many worries from our at our school. I think, and I've got our assistant principal Veronica Chase is on this, has been in the trenches with this stuff. But in our school, we're navigating the workload issues with I have to do I'm going to do a pass no pass, and that's going to look like this. But my partner is who's doing a graded class for the community college for this, and they're still in the same pool of resources, money, you name it, contract. And so that's the piece that that I know all of us at administrative level are going to be really contemplating. How can we help support them without overloading them, either on paper or for real? But I see that, yeah. So we were seeing some more information about we're seeing some more information. Again, they're going to get, for those schools, community colleges that are paid, if they drop the class, and these are the 7 that I have. And what I found to be true is that some of the smaller schools are actually a little more lenient on this. But these partners here, if they aren't already free, they're going to support people for dropping classes without penalty and refunding their money. And then I think the other piece will be and I'll put kudos out to to Chemeketa, our community college, one of our community college partners. In the conversation we had with their liaison in English, I was amazed how helpful they were, and how and we got the opportunity to sit with them and talk to them, and I thought, they're really in this to support us, and again, that's what brings me back to, we've got a great opportunity here to show off with the strength and the power that our own teachers have at K-12 that they may not have noticed in the past, because they were just getting they have one opportunity to talk to the person a year, and they're getting a syllabus for them, and I think and then they just get their grades turned in. I think this is a great chance for us to show our strength. So any other questions we can answer on this?
There's been a couple questions up about the 9th through 11th graders, and it seems to me that if you have a junior in that same class with seniors, and you're going to be issuing a letter grade to the community college, and for some reason, if the guidance from ODE comes out that we're going to do an A through F for underclassmen, seems like it would be easy to transition that same letter grade that you're going to give the Chemeketa back onto the high school transcript. But of course, that guidance hasn't come out yet from the department, and we're not sure when it will. So,
right, I just working in nuts and bolts with McMinnville High School, I know that it's going to be significantly tough if we do go with guidance that says A through F across the board for our teachers who are just piloting distance learning. I think that in a shorter amount of time span. Nevertheless, if they do, college credit probably has a leg up on that, because they're already navigating that with their juniors. I think the trajectory of a high school student is also really and as they're looking towards getting closer and closer to an associates and those kind of things, is really difficult if they're dropping these college credit classes as a junior and a sophomore, and when they come back the following year, they're still on the high school trajectory, and it'll be nearly impossible for them to get back on that college trajectory. So that's another piece, as our teachers are working with them, is give it a shot. for the transcript on college level to have a big hole in it, or even not missing a prerequisite, that might get us in a little bit of a quandary. I haven't dealt with that in the past, but it could be something that could come up if a kid's doing math 95 and then they want to do math 112 without a math 111. I think you're going to see something on that could be a red flag when we have to put in our prerequisites for the community colleges.
Okay. Let's see. Any other questions that people might have that they want to either post in the chat or just open your mic and go ahead and ask Tony if you've got a pressing issue you want to ask at this time. All right, hearing none, I'm going to jump to a couple of things that Craig has asked me to collect some information from you about. Craig Hawkins, our executive director. So the first question we want to ask about is, have you given any consideration to locker cleanout and the collection of resources that are in those lockers right now? And this is where I'd like you to either go ahead and open your mic and share ideas with your colleagues, or go ahead and put information into the chat that we'll pull out. But we're really interested in hearing if you've given any consideration to the notion of locker cleanup. You've got all this stuff in lockers from kids from this year. How are you going to get it back to them? And more importantly, how are you going to get your school resources out, textbooks, novels, etc., and get them back into the textbook depositories?
Chris, this is Lynn Jackson. Lynn Jackson, Astoria.
Yep, go ahead, Lynn.
So we have started that process today. We will be cleaning out lockers. We don't have as many as some schools. We're looking at probably cleaning out 400 to 500 lockers. Those items will be, that are district property, will be sorted and directly submitted to the library and other areas. The master key for all students by locker and last name will then be put into a bag, alphabetized by last name, and we will be coordinating a pickup following social distancing protocols, where one family will pull up, the bag will be placed in the trunk as they pop the trunk, etc. Those types of steps. We'll be doing that from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. on April 22nd.
And when you say we, Lynn, are you referring to like the custodial staff or the administrative staff? Who's actually going to do that work for you?
Custodial staff is doing all the prep work, where they will be cleaning out the lockers. We've already done that dry run once because of students and food that could have been placed in there. So that was done about a week ago. All items of district property or personal property will be placed starting this next week into those bags by custodial staff. Then I will be present for the distribution, as well as probably Assistant Principal Donovan and others.
Okay.
But that will be a limited team, maybe 3 people.
Thanks. Other ideas out there?
So we're here in Oak Ridge, and we've got a much smaller situation. We've only got about 200 kids in my building. My personal plan, and I'll caveat this by saying I've not talked with our superintendent yet, but my personal plan is to wait. There's no reason we got to get those lockers cleaned out right now. We've got till June to get those lockers cleaned out. So my plan is to wait and see if things relax by end of May, and we can set up some times for kids to come in 5 at a time, clean out lockers, take their stuff, turn in books, and do it that way. So my plan is a wait and see.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Hey, Chris. Dale Peterson here at Kennedy High School in Mount Angel. We're on day 3 of that. So what we did is had some classified staff that cleaned out lockers. And then, as you can imagine, we're in a small school of about 200 kids. So we were able to clean out lockers, bag up personal belongings, and also include textbooks that teachers, and also learning materials that teachers said that they needed to have. That was an email that they shot into our office staff. And we did that on, it's Thursday. So we started that Monday. We had pickups every afternoon. So we had seniors pick up their stuff on Tuesday. juniors yesterday, sophomores today, and freshmen tomorrow. And that's gone relatively well. Again, we're in a small community, so it's pretty easy for our kids to pick that up. And also, we're using social distancing rules, so drive-bys essentially. Staff will hand it to somebody in the car, and then they'll step away and next person up.
Hey, Dale, when you distributed things back out to the kids, did you distribute any of your school district resources like a textbook, a U.S. history book, an anthology? Did you, if teachers said that the kids needed that for distance learning, did you supply that out to the kids?
We did, and also what we did too is we're a one-to-one Chromebook school. So on the 13th, we told kids, take your Chromebooks home because we don't know how long this is going to last.
Oh, okay.
So and not every student has signed a contract that allows them to take their Chromebooks home. There's a fee associated with that, so they can get themselves a Chromebook cover as well as the charger. That day, we provided chargers and covers for every student that needed it, with no cost associated with that. And again, if teachers communicated with us late last week about textbooks and learning materials that they needed, teachers came into the building, they gathered that information, or they gathered that up, put it in our commons, and then we sorted that by student and by grade.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, this is Colleen Lord from Forest Grove High School. I am curious because we also have students with stuff in their PE lockers, and our PE lockers are a have at it. We don't have any way of keeping track of who's in each of their PE lockers, and so the kids just have chosen. And so we don't have any way of being able to get in there and figure out whose stuff is whose. So we're trying to manage that. Anybody have an idea? Anybody have a similar situation?
Do you issue their locks to them, or are they all privately owned locks on your locker?
That's a great question. The kids buy their locks.
Do you know if like in our schools, the PE teacher would have the lock combination and then the name that way? So I wonder if maybe they somehow have it without assigned to the locker itself. They might have something with that lock assigned. Maybe.
Possibly. I'm not 100% sure on that. I just know that we have hundreds and hundreds of kids with PE lockers, and they're all able to choose their own. So
With their own lock.
With their own lock.
That's a tough one. Just one thing, we've passed out over 600 Chromebooks at McMinnville High School using the same drive-by model. We're also doing the same thing with band instruments. And we're going to be doing that with some of our teachers are coordinating with us about AP Studio art equipment, supplies, and some textbooks. As Chris mentioned, we'll be actually passing out some textbooks and checking them out to students that were maybe a classroom set, so that we can get kids access to AP computer science and some of that. So I think, like Dale had mentioned, we're going to try to wait a little bit on the lockers. We already did a first round of smelly locker clean out, but we'll. I think our plan is it's going to take us a day to get all of our lockers cleaned up, our custodial staff bagged up, and then we'd have to make sure that we go by hallway, because some of our locker partners, when they have a locker partner, are going to need to be near each other, and we haven't quite figured out how that's going to work out to where they split that stuff up. But for the most part, the drive-by model has worked really well for us. We've done 3 rounds of that for Chromebooks, and now we've also done it for a couple of other items that teachers are asking for. And again, it's pretty much classified staff, campus supervisors, and administrators.
Okay, second question we want to ask about is...
Chris, Mike Solmer, can I say something about that real quick?
Yeah, please.
We haven't really discussed cleaning lockers out at this point either. I know that question's come up a lot. But as far as distributing chargers and things, because we're also one-on-one, Chromebook school, we've had parents wait in cars, and I've had different staff members assign different gates, and the car would pull up, and then they would walk to the student's locker or the band room to get the instrument, with just one person. The staff member would be the only one touching anything inside, and they'd get their stuff, and then they'd exit that way. So that is another way that, we did initially. And so I'm sure we'll use that for, distribution of other classwork, like you say, textbooks, Chris.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Mike. Well, Joe, you had a question. Go ahead.
I think the opposite is the problem. Collecting materials. What are we going to do? Just let it out for about 6 days and let the coronavirus die on the materials? Or that's one that I haven't wrapped my head around on how to collect materials.
And you're talking about like textbooks and the things that
Textbooks and Chromebooks. Yeah, all our seniors have Chromebooks right now. They have textbooks. They have that need to be turned in, and
you're talking like when you finally collect that information back from the kids after the end of the school year, then it's the whole sanitation process and all that.
Right. Has anyone thought of that? Is kind of if I mean, we could essentially start collecting senior stuff right now. I was thinking about collecting Chromebooks from our seniors because our underclassmen need some Chromebooks so we could have those additional resources. But I just didn't know how to do it safely yet. And
well, that's a good question that we'll follow up on, because that whole issue of the sanitation for, let's say, those seniors that are all done, they don't need to do any more work. They're sitting with a Chromebook. You'd like to get it back right now, given social distancing. What is the expectation from the Oregon Health Authority around the sanitation of that before you just start passing it back around to somebody else? All right, yeah. I'll follow up on that, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay. The next question that came up is about staff. Now, this is different for all of you out there. It's because some of you have closed your buildings and you're not letting anyone in your building. And others have, staff who can work from your building right now. So the question was about like retiring teachers or people who would be leaving, have already submitted their intent to not return. How are you handling the allowance of a person, an adult, who's an employee, getting into the building to collect their personal effects out of your classrooms?
Chris, Mike Sullivan, I can respond to that. I have 2 teachers in that situation, and they came in and collected probably 95% of their personal materials, and it was just me who executed walking them to their classroom, letting them walk in there. I left the doors open. They pulled their car close to their classroom, and they just kind of executed that themselves. Of course, I helped a little bit, but it was primarily just them.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Hi all, this is Veronica Chase from McMinnville High School. We created a plan last week for our 110 staff members to come in and get items from their classrooms. And I just ensured that we didn't have more than 5 teachers entering one entrance at a time and spread it out throughout the day. It was pretty organized, maintained social distancing. So for those who need to collect and pack things up for the remainder of the year, we'll probably do the same thing. We also had custodial staff and other support staff who had the door propped. They had hand sanitizer that they had people use as they walked through the doors. They had the internal doors propped and lights on so they wouldn't be touching any of the doors or anything but their stuff when they entered. So we'll probably do something similar.
Thanks, Veronica. Okay, well that handles Craig's question. So our plan is to have a very similar Zoom meeting next week, Thursday from 4 to 5 o'clock. And there's some topics that have come up. And what I want you to do is to use the chat feature to submit what is your highest area of concern that you'd like to talk about. Some of the things that have come up is forecasting. How in the world are we going to forecast for the 2021 school year when we don't have kids in the building? It's hard enough to do it when they're here. How are we going to get it done? So that's an option. Graduation. What are your thoughts about doing a commencement exercise? What are people thinking right now? Have you given any ideas to that? That's another topic. So if you have some things that you would like to have as a topic of discussion for next week, put those in the chat right now, and then we'll figure out what the highest interest is, and then we'll put together an agenda for next week at the same time, Thursday, 4 to 5 o'clock. I'll give you a few minutes to submit information. And while that's going on, I'd be happy to open the floor to any questions or concerns that any of you have out there, anything pressing.
I had a question regarding how people are navigating advanced placement and how that's going on for our families and whether they're feeling like they're getting left out of the process as everything is through distance learning. So I'd be interested to see how that's going for people.
Tony,
Silverton, our AP classes are continuing with the supports from College Board, and I think they've done a really great job of providing those accommodations. And so I think our students and staff are feeling really supported as far as AP. And then we're just getting ready to start tackling our articulated courses, but that's where we're at with those.
And Tony, do you see Margaret Calvert's question about senior inquiry at PSU? Yeah.
Chris, this is Pandy. Do you mind if I answer a question about AP I saw in the chat?
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, you guys, I'm the Accelerated Learning Specialist at ODE, and I've really been keeping tabs on College Board. And surprisingly, they're doing pretty amazing things, which they're not really known for. For students who are choosing not to take exams, I would really suggest trying to encourage them to take them. There's a variety of ways that they have done their very best to make these accessible for students, including giving them devices. Students can take AP exams on any device, including a phone. They can also write by hand and take a picture of it. So if they need devices, and that guidance is available on the College Board website. It also hopefully will come out on the Q&A part of the document for senior guidance Q&A. I think I already mentioned that. But the topics that are actually going to be on each specific exam are listed, so it's not a mystery. There are no multiple choice questions. It's all free response with very clear guidance on the website. And for those who have access to the internet, there are actually AP courses being taught by AP teachers. So I really would encourage students to sit for those exams. Universities are looking at them the same way as the feedback we've gotten from a wide variety of universities, although I do encourage students to double check wherever they're intending to go. But if anybody has, I put in the chat my email address. If anybody has specific questions, please feel free to send them to me. I actually think now is a great time to sit for an AP exam.
Okay, thanks, Mandy. All right, well, we'll leave the chat open for a few more minutes if you want to submit additional areas of interest. And Joe asked the question, will we send out another email regarding the link to next week's meeting? Yes, we will. So I'll, after we decide on our topic, you can expect something at the beginning of the week. And again, it'll be on Thursday from 4 to 5 o'clock. And we'll have a topic of your highest interest. And right now it looks like graduation's on everybody's topic of interest. So we'll, it may very likely be that for next week. All right, so that does it for us. Thanks, Tony, for taking time to be with us. And for any of you who need to, I'll put in the chat if you want to reach out to Tony for additional questions. That's where you can reach him, and he'll be happy, I'm sure, to share information you can. Have a great afternoon, and I hope you all have a great Easter weekend. We'll see you next week.
Hey, Chris, unmute yourself. I want to hear, well,
Yes,
well, I was thinking the other people would go off and maybe we could.
there's just a few left, so
That was pretty amazing.
a lot of people.
Well, topics, right?
In the middle of the meeting, ours froze up on our end.
Oh, I know.
Lost all of the chat, but I think I can go back and get it from the videoing it. So.
Oh, well, you were super responsive to the couple of times that I, cued you.
Yeah. Well,
That,
see, I missed that whole thing with Eric.
yeah,
That was part of that when it froze up. So I was glad you sent me that message.
yeah. Well, and it wasn't so much that he had a question, it was, he had some really important stuff. But the fact that he didn't speak up, I thought that really.
Yeah.
So did you invite him to come in, or is he part of OASSA?
I think he got it. I think he probably got it from Aaron Cook.
From Aaron Cook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's,
maybe ODE guys, if we know they're on, you invite them right up front, or to acknowledge that they're there.
yeah. Because I didn't know who Pandy is.
Yeah, she's the like high school success person.
Yeah. Well, I thought their comments about lockers were interesting. They're really doing all kinds of things.
Yeah, that was interesting.
It sounded like they're all